Ever listen to someone speak and it's like, wow, they're really thinking out loud, like their brain's moving a mile a minute.
Yeah, you're talking about Jordan Peterson, right?
Exactly. And today, we're really going to dig into his book, 12 Rules for Life.
Which, let me tell you, covers a lot of ground. Psychology, myth, even ancient wisdom.
It's almost like he's, I don't know, having a conversation with himself on the page, you know, bouncing ideas around.
He actually calls that dialogic thinking, right? Like a constant internal dialogue.
Yeah, and you really feel that when you're reading. It's like you're wrestling with these big questions right alongside him.
Which is kind of refreshing, actually. He's not afraid to say, hey, I don't have all the answers. Pretty unexpected for, like, a clinical psychologist and a professor.
Speaking of unexpected, did you know this whole book actually started as an answer on Quora?
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, someone asked him for life advice, and bam, his response blew up and became the basis for 12 rules.
Talk about an unconventional origin story. I mean, it really shows you how much his ideas resonate, though.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's break it down. What's at the heart of Peterson's philosophy?
Yeah.
Like, what's the big takeaway amidst all the lobster analogies?
You said it. He's all about this idea of navigating chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah, like the inherent chaos of, well, existence. And then trying to establish order in your life.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but give me a visual here.
Think of that Taoist symbol, you know, the black and white serpents. That's chaos and order always intertwined.
So it's not just about, like, imposing strict rules on yourself.
Not at all. It's about understanding these fundamental forces, how they're constantly at play.
And how do those forces, chaos and order, actually show up in our daily lives?
Think about it. What brings a sense of order to your life? Is it your routine? Your tidy apartment?
My friends, definitely. Feeling connected.
Exactly. But now imagine those things disrupted. Phone calls at 3 a.m. Your apartment's a mess because your roommate had a party.
Ugh, don't remind me.
That's chaos creeping in. And how do you react? Annoyed? Stressed?
A little bit, yeah.
See, Peterson would say that's hardwired. Our emotional responses to disruptions, they go way back to our, like, primal instincts for survival.
So when I'm freaking out over a lost phone, I'm channeling my caveman ancestors.
In a way, yes. But he goes even deeper. Peterson says we're driven to impose order on chaos, even on a perceptual level.
Okay, now you've lost me. What does that even mean?
Have you ever heard of the invisible gorilla experiment?
Rings a bell, but refresh my memory.
Basically, people watch a video and have to count how many times, say, a basketball gets passed. And right in the middle of it all, someone in a gorilla suit walks by.
No way, I totally noticed that.
You'd think, right? But here's the thing. Half the people miss it completely. Too focused on counting those passes.
Wow, that's kind of scary. So what's the connection to Peterson in this order thing?
He's saying our attention, what we choose to focus on, literally shapes the reality we experience.
So like we're filtering out the gorilla moments because our brains are trying to create order.
Exactly. We're highlighting what matters to the task at hand and ignoring the rest.
Huh. That's a lot to process. So we're not really in control of what we see.
He's not saying that. It's more like we have more control than we think. What we choose to focus on matters.
That's a powerful idea. It's
Yeah.
like we're building these mental frameworks. And those help us create a sense of order, right? Like we're filtering out the noise.
Exactly. It's about building those frameworks, those
Yeah.
guiding principles that help us deal with all that chaos.
Which is where his 12 rules come in.
Exactly. Each rule is like a tool, you know, a way to build a better, stronger framework for your life.
And some of them are surprisingly, I don't know, concrete. Like Rule 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. Seems obvious, but then he tells that story about his friend Chris.
Oh, yeah, that one always gets me.
Totally. It just really hit home how much the people we're close to, they can really impact us, you know?
For better or worse, yeah. And with Chris, it seemed like those friendships, they really pulled him down a darker path.
Makes you wonder, have you ever had friends like that? Not bad people necessarily, but...
But not good for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough, because I think we've all been there, right?
Peterson actually talks about resentment as a big signal in their situation.
Resentment?
Yeah, like that feeling you get when you're giving more than you're getting in a relationship. It's a sign to take a step back and say, hold on, is this really working for me?
So it's not about, like, being a pushover. More about recognizing when something's not right.
Exactly. He even says resentment can be a good thing sometimes.
Really? How so?
Because it can push you to either change the situation or change your attitude about it. It's like this inner voice saying, hey, pay attention, something's got to give.
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
He doesn't advocate just cutting people off, though. He says sometimes resentment means you need to just shut up and get on with it.
Meaning?
Meaning, accept the situation, focus on what you can control.
Interesting. So how do you know when to speak up versus when to...
Ugh, suck it up.
Yeah, basically.
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
He talks about being able to tell the difference between actual tyranny where you need to stand your ground and just everyday annoyances that are better to let go.
Makes sense. So recognizing that resentment, it's like this first step to figuring out how to move forward.
Exactly. And that takes real self-awareness, which Peterson would say is crucial for, well, everything.
Definitely. Okay, another rule that stuck with me was Rule 9. Assume the person you're listening to might know something you don't.
Yes, that's a big one.
Right. I mean, again, seems kind of obvious.
Yeah. But it's so easy to forget, right? Especially in the heat of the moment when we're so sure we're right.
Totally. And he tells that really powerful story about the woman. And it's a tough story.
Right. And it just shows how important it is to really listen, to approach conversations with a sense of humility, you know? Because you never know what someone else is going through.
And sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen.
Exactly. Sometimes just listening is more valuable than any advice or solution we could offer.
It reminds me of that quote, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes. And Peterson takes it even further. He analyzes different types of conversations, like those focused on dominance.
Oh, yeah, like trying to one-up each other.
Right. Or those based on trying to be witty, you know? Always got to have the last word.
Been there.
But then there are those rare conversations where the goal is truly understanding, where both people are genuinely trying to see the other person's perspective.
Which hopefully is what we're doing here, right?
I'd say so. We might not agree with everything Peterson says, but at least we're trying to understand where he's coming from.
Totally. Okay, we've talked about some of his more, I don't know, universally relatable rules. But then there's the stuff that tends to ruffle some feathers, like his analysis of social movements, particularly feminism.
Yeah, that's where things get a little more, shall we say, controversial.
For sure. So how does Peterson approach something as complex as feminism?
Well, he really challenges a lot of assumptions, like this idea of men always being the oppressors and women the oppressed.
Which in some ways makes sense, right? I mean, historically.
Of course, there's a lot of truth to that. But Peterson's saying it's not the whole story. He points out that men were behind some major advancements for women, like who invented the tampon, the birth control pill.
Good point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
And that's what he does, right? He makes you reconsider those narratives we often take for granted.
So it's not about denying the very real issues women have faced and continue to face. It's more about...
It's about nuance. He's urging us to look deeper, to acknowledge the complexities of power dynamics, and to avoid those overly simplistic narratives.
And he uses a lot of mythology to illustrate these points, like that terrible mother archetype.
Exactly. He's saying, look, women can be powerful too. And that power isn't always pretty. It's not always nurturing and good.
So it's not just about men versus women.
Right. He's saying that focusing solely on gender can blind us to other important factors. Power dynamics exist everywhere in all kinds of relationships.
That's true. And he doesn't shy away from other potentially touchy subjects either, like men and women in the workplace.
Right. He dives right in. And his take is, well, it's definitely sparked a lot of debate.
Like what?
Well, he talks about how men and women, while obviously equal in value and dignity, are also fundamentally different. And he doesn't think those differences should be ignored.
And how does that relate to the workplace?
He argues that men and women often have different priorities, different desires. For example, he's observed that a lot of women, not all, but a lot, want partners, not dependent boys.
Interesting. So it's like he's advocating for men to, like, step up.
Exactly. To embrace responsibility, to cultivate those traditionally masculine virtues.
Which, I mean, that can be a good message for anyone, right?
Totally. It's about personal accountability, striving for excellence.
And you know what? It's refreshing to hear someone talking about these things so honestly.
Right. Even if you don't always agree, you have to respect his willingness to tackle these tough conversations head on.
Absolutely. And ultimately, I think that's what makes Peterson's work so valuable. It challenges us to think critically, to question our own biases, and to engage in these important conversations with more nuance and understanding. It's like he's saying, hey, the world's a messy place, folks. Let's not pretend there are easy answers.
Exactly. Embrace the mess. And that's what I appreciate about his work. Even when you disagree, he makes you think, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He really wants you to wrestle with these big questions, not just take his word for it.
Which brings us to arguably the most important rule of them all, Rule 12.
Ah, yes. Behold the terrible mother. No, wait.
It's pet a cat when you encounter one on the street, right?
Close. Although, not a bad rule to live by, honestly.
You're killing me. Okay, give me a hint.
Okay, it's about finding meaning in those small, everyday moments.
Small moments. Okay, is it pick up a pin when you encounter one on the street? That's about noticing the little things, right?
You're getting warmer. But think less about literal objects and more about perspective, how we see the world, even when things are tough.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, now you've got me thinking. Oh, is it the one with the parable about the pen of light?
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
I was getting there. That one's always stuck with me.
For those who haven't encountered it, tell us about this pen of light. What's it all about?
Well, it's this pen, right? And it has the power to illuminate the world, to reveal both its beauty and its ugliness. And the person holding the pen, they get to decide what they focus on.
It's like a metaphor for our attention, right? What we choose to see, what we choose to highlight.
Exactly. And Peterson's basically asking us, what are you going to write with your pen of light? What kind of story are you going to tell?
It's a powerful image. And it really drives home the point that we have more agency than we often realize. Even in the midst of chaos, we have a choice in how we perceive the world, what we focus on.
And that choice, it matters. It shapes our experience, our relationships, our entire lives.
Absolutely. And that's a pretty hopeful message when you think about it. Even when things are tough, we have the power to choose our perspective, to find meaning and beauty, even in the darkness.
And that's really what Peterson is all about, isn't it? Encouraging us to embrace the good, the true, and the beautiful, even amidst the chaos and uncertainty of life.
Well said. It's like he's giving us a toolbox, a set of strategies for navigating the complexities of being human. And hey, maybe along the way, we'll even remember to pet a cat or two.
Now, that's a rule I can get behind.
For sure. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into 12 rules for life, I'm left with a sense of, I don't know, possibility. Like, Peterson's not offering easy answers, but he's giving us a framework for asking better questions.
Exactly. And ultimately, isn't that what matters most? The journey of self-discovery, of wrestling with those big questions, of constantly striving to become better, more integrated versions of ourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself.